guys, what's up? It's Joe Rady from Rady's Rides. We're back here at Jaguar Land Rover St. Petersburg, and guess what? I have that game changer of a sports car. Is this vehicle right here. This is it. This is a C8 Corvette Stingray. This particular one has the Z51 performance package. But before we get into this revolutionary mid-engine Corvette, let's talk about what's going on here. So 2020 was the first year of the C8, and it really was a crazy year with the start of the pandemic, and having this new Stingray really was a game changer. Moving the engine to the middle, obviously from a performance standpoint when it comes to handling, was something that the father of the Corvette, the true father of the Corvette, Zora Arkus Duntov, wanted since the 1950s. Now, say what you want about the C8, but one thing is for certain, the performance has been there. Now, of course, now we have a full lineup of C8 Corvettes. Starts off with the Stingray, then you can move up to an E-Ray, then you have the Z06, and of course, now the ZR1 and the ZR1X. But what I want to do is, with this review, is I want to really focus on, do you need to go Z06? Do you really want to go Z06, or should you go with a Stingray, especially one like this that has an AWE performance exhaust on it? Why don't we go ahead, let's dive into ours and see if we can find out. Right off the bat, you have that now iconic look of the C8. And it's crazy to say iconic because it's been 5 short years since the introduction of this car. This particular paint job is actually a rare color. It's called Shadow Gray, and it really highlights the lines of the car very nicely. Now, the front of the business, of course, you're gonna get full LED headlights, LED daytime running lamps, and turn signals. The headlights is one of my favorite parts of the car. Working your way down, we have that GM-specific carbon flash metallic, massive corner air intakes that brings cool air for the heat exchangers. And remember, this car is wide, but a Z06 is even wider. It's about 3 inches wider than the Stingray. So when you see a Z06, it's got a little bit more kind of presence to it than a Stingray. But when we're talking dollar for dollar, do you really need to go that route? Now, because this has the Z51 performance package, you are going to get this flat black front lip splitter. And then as we come across the front, this is another look of the car I love. It's got that stealth fighter look. You got the cross flags. It's been there since 1953 on the Corvette. And then you have that carbon flash metallic functional vents on both sides for brake cooling and for aero work. But really, like I said, from the front of the business, it's got that stealth fighter appeal with the Z06. Not only is it wider, but all of the openings are larger. So one thing to think about. Now, as we rise up, angular style body lines really fits it well. It was an undertaking to develop this C8 because it is a mid-engine, and you got to keep the familiarity of a Corvette, what it looks like, but obviously the body proportions are much different than all the previous generations. Now, as we come around the bend, you are going to find you're going to have staggered wheel setup. So up front, this is a 19-inch wheel in diameter. Z51 performance package gets you the larger brake calipers and rotors. So we got 6-piston Brembos, got the Z51 badge on it. And then the rotors are enlarged. 13.3-inch rotors up front, 13.6-inch rotors out back. And what's funny is, normally that's reversed. Usually the larger rotor is up front and the smaller rotor is out rear, but hey, the engineers decided to go this route. This particular Stingray also has the magnetic ride suspension. So Z51 performance package is one option. That was around $5,000. And then it was another option to get the magnetic ride suspension. That's where the performance suspension is going to fine-tune itself as it's going over the tarmac. These wheels weren't my favorite, and they still are not my favorite, but the silver, hard to come by on vehicles today, period, because most cars have black wheels, that's about it. But the silver actually works great with the Shadow Gray. And then of course we're running those Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. Size up front, you're basically looking at 245 on the width, 35 series sidewall, and like I said, that's a 19-inch wheel. Now coming down the side, this one has where somebody put these carbon fiber mirror cap covers with these vortex generators. You got your turn signals built in. Of course, it's a coupe, so that means it's a Targa top. There's no solid roof Corvette. You either get a Targa or you get the convertible hardtop. That goes for Stingray or Z06. Everything painted on the side sill, which is really nice. That shadow gray looking great. And then you have your carbon flash metallic on those massive openings to bring cool air for that V8. One of the things I'm not really a big fan of is the amount of gloss black. This is all gloss black. I wish they would have made this an actual window. That would have been a nice touch. Now on the rear setup, you're going to get that 20-inch wheel. Tires are 305 on the width, 30 series sidewall. We do have the Z51 branded Brembo calipers. You got an electronic limited slip diff with a 355 gear out back. So they changed the gearing on the vehicle. Now when we come around the back, you do have that carbon flash metallic optional wing. These were hard to come by because during the pandemic, the producer of the wing actually went out of business. So there were a lot of people that had to get their wing later after the fact. LED lighting looking great. I still miss the classic round tail lights of a Corvette. Carbon flash metallic on your venting. And then as you can see, we have the AWE exhaust, staggered tips, large, almost 5-inch openings. And then as we come around the middle here, you have the Corvette name, of course, the Stingray badge up top. And I love the way that when you go coupe, you get to see the engine. Can't wait to show you that 6.2 liter V8. Working our way down to ground level, you got your exhaust on both sides. Now remember, when you go Z06, you get your quad tip in the center and a totally different rear diffuser, and the rear of the car is wider. So that's another thing to think about if you want that wider look. I kind of like the quad tips on both sides, especially with the AWE exhaust. But why don't we go ahead, let's pop this hatch area and talk about the engine in this thing. All right guys, talking about the engine, underneath that rear glass is that 6.2 liter LT2 V8. One of the zonks is, you see all the honeycomb wire mesh? That brings any kind of rainwater, or if you're washing your Stingray, the water goes right into the engine compartment. So that's a bit of a zonk. But we have, because we have the Z51 performance package, you get an extra 5 horsepower. That makes it 495 horsepower, 470 pound-feet of torque. It is bolted to the 8-speed dual clutch Tremec transmission. No manual, that's a zonk. 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, quarter mile in 11 seconds flat, and the vehicle weighs right around 3,587 pounds. Now, when you compare that to a Z06, the Z06 does have more horsepower. It has well over 600 horsepower, and it uses a 5.5 liter naturally aspirated V8 that redlines at over 8,000 RPM. That's all fine and dandy. The biggest surprise for some people when it comes to the Z06 is that it doesn't have that torque down low where they normally feel it and experience it in a Corvette from different generations. Well, guess what? Because this is that old-fashioned pushrod V8, you do get that low down grunt. And because we got the modified AWE exhaust, you're definitely going to get more sound. Whereas with the Z06, it's more of a European sound to it with that higher revving V8. But why don't we go ahead, let's see if we could prove you wrong and say that this Stingray is the better way to go with the AWE exhaust, and you can save yourself a lot of money. Let's fire it up and hear its roar. All right, guys, we're inside this 2020, the first year of the C8 Stingray. The good news is that whether you get a 2020, 2021, 2022, 23, 24, 25, any of those years C8 Stingrays, they're all the same. Because you're getting same 6.2 liter, same Z51 performance package. Yeah, they change colors and wheels, but other than that, it's the same performance, same car. But obviously, to try to save yourself the most money, if you go with a pre-owned 2020 like this one, that's where you're going to get the biggest savings. Now, starting price for a 2020 C8 was $59,999. If you're looking at a Z06, starting price for those today are over 100 grand. This particular one, asking price with the Z51 performance package and all the other goodies is $59,000. But let's see what you get when you go with this one LT package, because that's how the packages are, the interior. 1LT, 2LT, 3LT is the top. This is a 1LT, so technically it's a base interior, but is that necessarily a bad thing? Let me show you. To the door panels, you're gonna get the same great soft touch material, contrast stitching, Bose stereo system, and then you got that nice aluminum trim around the window switchgear. You got your aluminum trim around the push button for your lock and unlock and to open up the door. Door pocket is a little on the small side, so maybe just 2 Checkers chili dogs and that's it, and then more contrast stitching. Going from the door panel to the dash, stitching everywhere, looking great. And then of course, you got stitching up top on the dash. This is where we have that big wall of buttons. On a 1LT, it just has dual climate control, no heated seats or ventilated seats. Everybody gets an 8-inch infotainment system for up to model year 2025. For 2026, it changes. Just something to be aware of. You can bring up all your information. You got your different modes, which I'll show you when you come to the business side. And let me show you the backup camera. Super clear, clear as day with trajectory lines. And then we're right back pretty much where we started. Now we're right back where we started. Underneath this little palm rest is your mode selector switch. This is for your 8-speed dual clutch transmission. 2 cup holders. And then you got a little tiny compartment here where you could put an iPhone 47 Gold Edition. It's got felt lining so you won't scratch it. 2 USB-Cs, and then you have your center speaker with the Stingray badge. And these are your GT seats. These are your base seats. So it does have the Corvette badging in the headrest and nice stitching, and the bolstering is actually great, but you could go even more intense with the GT2 seats, or you could go all the way in with those track spec competition seats. And then of course we have that removable targa top. But why don't you come over here to the business end? I want to show you behind the flat bottom and flat top steering wheel in a Stingray. All right guys, business time. Behind the wheel, you do have that nice aluminum sill plate with the Stingray name. Pedal box right out of a C8R race car. Aluminum dead pedal, brake pedal, and throttle. Seats are very comfy, very supportive. And these are some of the more aggressive seats compared to previous generations. And these are just the base GT1 seats. You got GT2 and the comp seats. Steering wheel, leather, contrast stitching, flat top, flat bottom, flat black on the switchgear. You got your Zora button. That puts you into full performance mode. And then you got massive metal surfboard style paddles to go up and down that 8-speed dual clutch transmission. It is a power tilting and telescoping steering wheel. And then you have, of course, that digital gauge cluster that, depending on what mode you're in, will change a little bit. So there's sport, you could bring up and go track, and that's gonna change the RPM display and all those goodies. No head-up display in a 1LT. Now you do have a frunk that's got about 5 cubic feet of space, and you got 10 cubic feet of space underneath the engine hatch. Do I care about that? No. What I do care about is if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go on throttle in this C8. All right, guys, we're inside this C8 Stingray Z51 package, magnet ride suspension, or I should say magnetic ride suspension, and that AWE exhaust. If you're ready, I'm ready. I'm gonna shift manually with the paddles. Are you ready? Oh On throttle, here we go! Now what's great about it is that I feel like the AWE exhaust gives it just that little something that it was missing. Yes, when you get the Z51 performance package, you get the GM performance exhaust, that active valve exhaust, and it is loud as well. But I always felt like the C7s were louder than the C8s. So it kind of just gives it that little extra something something to give it the best sound, especially quality of sound. Now, of course, like I said, the Z06 is gonna be that more exotic, higher revving note, but you can't beat the low down grunt of this C8 Stingray. On throttle! We got those Brembo freaking calipers just shedding speed like a husky sheds hair, so quick, so effective. And then the fast shifting Tremec 8-speed dual clutch. Really rock solid, stable, planted to the ground with that magnetic ride suspension. Woo-hoo-hoo, look at this. Yeah. Sound of that V8. So balanced, so direct, and like I said, you're gonna get that. If you're familiar, if you've had Corvettes in the past, you're gonna get that familiar low down grunt that the Z06, the C8 Z06 just doesn't have. It just builds power in a totally different way with that flat plane crankshaft. Holds a line so well. I mean, performance-wise, it's very negligible because 0 to 60, 2.9 seconds. Z06 does 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. I mean, so it's really a fine line between the performance of a Stingray and the performance of a Z06. But there's a bigger line when it comes to the price tag. That line, that gap is thicker. But that AWE exhaust, it's music to my freaking ears. That's for sure. Look at this, stop on a dime and give everybody change. On throttle! Oh yeah. On the brakes. Look at this. Holds a line so well. Of this thing, mind-numbing performance, no matter which way you go. Mind-numbing, and that's really the eating of the pudding. That's where the proof is. The proof is in the eating of the pudding, man. And they definitely got the performance pudding on this thing down. Now, I know this isn't part of the question. I still would prefer a C7 personally. That's me. But between this and a C8 Z06, it's gonna be close because like I said, performance wise it's there. With a nice custom exhaust like this AWE, it really opens it up, lets her sing. You got that electronic limited slip diff, getting the power to the ground, and the magnetic ride suspension. And guess what? Nothing is artificial when it comes to the sound of this thing. Not at all. listen to her. Oh, she sounds so healthy, so good. But I'm hoping that this has been a good overall review and a little bit of a discussion with this C8 Stingray Z51. We're gonna get back to Jaguar Land Rover St. Pete and wrap this one up. So I'll see you in a split second. All right, guys, another great day in so many ways. I love going on throttle in a Corvette of any generation. Especially, I love the color, that shadow gray on this particular Z51 Stingray. Definitely got to thank everybody at Jaguar Land Rover St. Pete and Miro for getting us access to this vehicle. Let me know what you think. Are you going to save yourself the money? Get yourself a Stingray and just add an AWE exhaust rather than going Z06. Let me know your thoughts in that comment section. But if you're new to the channel, you're on your way out, hit that subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile. I'll come back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Raised Rise family. Gotta get up to Stephen Flood. He's gotta be a little bit of a contortionist to get you the angles of the interior of this C8 Corvette. He put in the good work. I think now he has to go see his chiropractor, but hey, that comes with the territory. But thank you, Stephen, for all that you're doing. Just like always, guys, I'll see you on the next ride.